Hello everyone, and welcome to Let's Play OpenTTD episode 15. So to begin, let's review our network plan, since it's been a while since we've taken a look at it. But at a high level, the idea for this network is to serve one of each of the four secondary industries in each of the four corners of the map. So those four industries are the oil refinery, which we have in the eastmost corner, the steel mill, which we have in the southernmost corner, the factory, which we have in the northernmost corner of our network, and the sawmill, which we do not have yet. Now, when I was placing the factory, originally I was going to put it in the northernmost corner of the map, but at that point in the game, the trains were just so slow that it would take forever for them to get there, it felt like anyway. So I placed it down near the middle of the map. But now I think our network is ready for a sawmill. And this time, since we have our faster trains, faster upgraded trains, we can go all the way to the northernmost corner of the map, I think. Or I guess the westernmost, actually, up over here. So that's the plan for today. We're going to build out the main line through these mountains up to the westernmost corner and set up a new main station there and start serving some forests. Alright, I've taken a look around in the west corner of the map and we have a suitable sawmill and power station at Sundinghattan. Now I want to also make sure that everyone knows that I am using the BSPI Industries GRF. So I'm not actually using the default industries, even though it looks like that. So one of the mechanics of BSPI is that secondary industries need power. So that's why we need to find a town that has both a power plant and a sawmill. But this one is suitable. So to mark where the main line is going to go, I'm going to just buy up some land. Use the little land purchase signs. So you can follow along the curvature of the land. And zoom out, make sure we're going the right way. Just heading to the west. Follow a little coast there. Can, let's see, go around Fruitbridge, pretty big city there. And let's see, we need to make sure we go across this land bridge over here to get to the west corner of the map. And that should just about be it. So we're trying to get to Sundinghattan over here. So we'll just go up over this little valley, past the farm, and here we are. Alright, now it's time to build it, and we'll do a little time lapse. And there we go. Looks relatively straight from the map overview, but it does have some character. For example, over here, I went kind of crazy trying to keep the steepness down. I only do that really for aesthetic reasons. It really doesn't affect the trains too much when you have realistic acceleration. And over here, let's see, where is it? I diverged from the outline a little bit since I saw it was a little bit flatter over here rather than going up this somewhat steep part. Not really a big deal. Don't really like how this looks actually. It looks kind of like a zigzag where everything's just straight lines. But it'll get character over time. Don't worry about that. Oh, and also I forgot, a new train came out. Should have done this sooner. But there's a new medium class vehicle available, so that's just a direct upgrade. And we have the depot infrastructure already, so we can just start replacing those vehicles. Keep them fast for this new giant leg of our network. And while editing, I noticed that I placed some signals backwards around these bridges here, so go ahead and fix that now. Need to extend these bridges, or that bridge path by 1, and here as well, so we have room for those signals on the exit. And let's keep these aligned. There we go. Check the other end. And we can remove this reverser as well. Alright, so to set up the Sawmill station, the first thing we're going to do is something I probably should have done earlier, and that is build a little feeder from a forest, this nearby forest, to the Sawmill just to make sure it doesn't close. So in the vanilla game, as long as a secondary industry produces cargo, or produces goods in this case, the industry is protected from closing for 3 years, I believe, if I remember correctly. So this is BSPI, of course, though. I'm not sure if BSPI is different, but I think it's the same. So we'll do a short little train, hold control to do full load, and press K. Let's see. K to do unload all. Okay. And no loading. Have to figure out the shortcuts, but I think there's probably a faster way to do that. And also what I'm going to do is, as you can see, the station's not close enough to the Sawmill actually, so I'll do hold control to connect a jump there. And this is kind of cheaty usually, but I just need room to build my platforms. Alright, so here we are with the 2x speed post commentary. And for this station, I want to make it big so we don't have to upgrade it in the near future. A lot of the main stations on this map are pretty small, 2 or 3 platforms, and they all are going to need to be upgraded soon, and that's going to take a lot of work, and I don't want to do that here. So, I don't have the most confidence when building stations. There's a lot of questions. So, like how many platforms? More platforms is better, but the big question that's kind of hard to answer in my experience is how to do the entrances and exits. So there's essentially, you can choose how much choice the tracks get for both the entrance and the exit separately. So for example, here on this wood drop platform, the tracks don't get any choice. There's just a set of 3 platforms for each track, and then in the exit, those 3 platforms just merge back together. And I think for a drop, that's an easier design to build, and for a drop that's good because we don't really need trains to spend a lot of time finding the right platform or anything, because they're just going to drop off the wood and then get going immediately. Now for the pickup, we're also doing 6 platforms, but I'm going to give the trains choice on the entrance. So if the platforms for one track fill up, then, well, that can't happen here because each of the tracks can reach all 6 platforms. So even if the trains are completely unbalanced between the 2 input tracks, there'll be no problem filling up all 6 platforms. So here I'm just counting out waiting bay lengths. You can see that I just have the crosses there to split between the 2 input tracks. And then counting out these waiting bays, make sure we have 10 tiles of space. So effectively, we'll have, we'll have the 6 platforms as well as 6 waiting bay spaces. So we'll have capacity to store 12 trains, and then we'll also add an overflow. Now here, I don't really like the way the track splits off, because the straight route, or the rightmost route, technically makes a signal gap of size 2 when the tracks are all split off on one side like that. So, you know, it's not the worst thing in the world, so I do end up using that design, as you can see right there. But there's no way to get a signal between the entrance and the rightmost output track. But it's probably not a big deal at all. And just make sure those waiting bays are the right length, and we can build the input tracks back around, have them go back around this town, and we'll have lots of room to build any overflows or anything we need over there. Also building the entrance for the 2 tracks to the drop right now. And I'm just going to have the... So as you can see now, we have 4 tracks going into the stations. I'm just going to have them actually go down to 2 tracks entering. And we'll just let each of the 2 tracks choose or correspond to one of the 2 tracks for each of the 2 stations. That's pretty confusing wording, but you'll see what I mean. We'll just have the left 2 tracks have 1 input track, and the right 2 tracks have 1 input track. So there you can sort of see what I mean. And we'll just double up that bridge as well to make sure we have the capacity or the throughput to serve that station. Alright, now let's just build the track back for the entrance to the stations. Have it loop around the town. Nothing too fancy or confusing. I think we'll just go up on the hill a little bit to follow the contour of the terrain so we don't get too close to the town. Now, if I didn't have transparency on, you'd see that there's tons of trees everywhere that we just drove those tracks through, so the local authority definitely doesn't like us right now. But luckily, these stations are all far enough away from the town center that the local authority has no power over us. So that's good. Not going to bother trying to appease them. Now for the station exits, we again have the question of how much choice should there be, and in this case, for the goods pickup, I didn't give the trains any choice, just like the other station. So I guess you could argue, or I was thinking, watching this back, that this particular setup will probably end up unevenly distributing the trains. So there'll probably be more trains going to the left track, just because, due to the way the entrance is shaped, that those platforms are closer. So you could argue that that this is sort of a bad design, but that's the thing with stations. There's a lot of choices to make, and there's not really bad choices. There's just, you know, it's a little bit bad. It's not super bad, so it doesn't really matter. At least that's how I feel about stations, you know. Backbone hubs are where it's at, you know. Everything's important there. So speaking of backbone hubs, we now at this point are going to have 4 sets of tracks coming out of those platforms, as well as that 5th track which I've added coming from the north, which will be returning from the power plant. So we're going to need a way to merge those all back into 2 tracks. And this is very similar to building a backbone hub, because this is basically a merger where we want 5 tracks in and 2 tracks out. So the way I'm going to do this is have the outermost tracks You can see the northmost track be on the left, and the rightmost track as well on the right. Those will be the prioritized tracks, and then the other 3 tracks will get choices between the 2 prioritized tracks, and they'll have to wait for those trains. So you can see the easiest way to build something like this is to work backwards. So you can see I marked where those trains will merge into the prioritized tracks, and then I built split-offs to the deprioritized tracks, and we'll need 3 for each of them. And then once we have them, we just need to mix them up a little to make sure we can pair them up. So to make that clearer, I'm going to mark the left track with yellow and the right track with red. So what we want to do is pair each yellow track with a red track, and then those will be combined backwards, and that'll be the choice that the trains get. So at this point, if we look at those bridges, we can see we have yellow, red, and yellow, red. So we have all 3 pairs we need. So right now, all I'm doing is going back and counting waiting bay lengths, waiting bays of size 10, so that trains that are waiting on one, for example, if a train's waiting on the yellow track, we need to make sure it doesn't block the red track, and vice versa. As you can see, we have the first 2 pairs there recombined, so those are the 2 tracks, and the third one will be recombined shortly. And I guess we'll take a break and do some quick prios right now. And there's the third and final track. So once we have that, it's super easy to just connect those up to our output tracks. And at this point, it is pretty much done as far as I can tell. So now the last thing to do is build the power plant station and hook that up. I took a look at our operating profit, and you can see we're up to £3,400 per 2 months. And the previous peak before the giant jam was 2,400, so we've more than fully recovered, and we're above 40% more than before. And that's partially due to the new trains, which are faster, and faster trains or faster deliveries pay more. So for this station, I'm going to build 3 platforms, which is probably more than enough. It seems like the secondary industries don't use too much power, actually. So anyway, it's good to at least build more platforms to make it more future-proof. And I added some eye candy there since the station's a little bit far away from the power plant. And I'm just going to have 1 track going in and out of this station, again because I don't think we'll have too many trains needed. And here I'm just connecting up the exit, nothing too fancy. And it's nice and easy since we already built the whole giant merger over there. Now this part was actually a little bit tricky. This is the split off for the split between the sawmill and the power plant. And the thing is that we have both the river here and also the need to do the split. So at first I'm thinking here, let's just get some bridges over and then we'll do the split on the other side on this sort of sideways hill here. But there's not that much room. So I'm sort of thinking we can move these tracks around, try and keep them in sync the whole time, and we'll have, this one go up and it'll split off to the right, and then we can have the other two bridge over. But what I wasn't really paying attention to is actually there's a 2-tile curve there if you look closely. On the left track right after the bridge, if you take the right bridge you have to turn left and turn right, and that's a 2-tile curve. And I'm trying to build everything to 3-tile curves, so that's actually not gonna work. So this is the point where I noticed that 2-tile curve. So I'm thinking, how can we fix this? We can move the whole track, move everything forward a tile, but it's getting sort of long. So let's start over, and instead this time let's have the split be before the river. So here we have the extra tracks, so those 2 tracks on furthest to the left. I'm thinking we'll go to the right, but that's kind of silly. We might as well have the right tracks go to the right. So those 2 there. And then we can use some tunnels, since we have that relatively flat land there. And that will let the left track get over to the right side. And then at that point, it's pretty straightforward, just need to connect up those tracks. And we need to split off the right track as well. So we'll add some more bridges for that. Seems like quite an excessive number of bridges, but just to make sure that we don't have any bottlenecks at this river. That's why we have those. And then we just need to connect up that split as well. And I'm just putting that merge relatively far back so that trains don't block each other. And then everything's connected up basically at this point, so there we go. And last thing to do is rename the station. Sweet. And I just realized that this sawmill doesn't actually have any power, so it's not producing any goods. So to make sure it doesn't close, I'm just going to hook up this local coal mine here to the power plant. And then I think it'll be time for the comment of the day. So Attica asked, when will I do a FURS playthrough? And FURS industry replacement set is a lot of fun, adds a lot of new industries, and has some fun game mechanics with the engineering supplies. But for my next series, I would probably use Yeti Extended Towns and Industries, just because it requires you to really go crazy with dividing up cargoes and using logic there if you really want to get the most out of the industries. And there aren't really any primary industries there. Once you have one of each industry, you can effectively create infinite cargo with positive feedback loops, so you can really crush your network with trains once that happens. But in terms of actually producing those videos, I have my hands full with the Let's Play for now, and I don't want to commit to too many different series at the same time. So maybe if I improve my recording setup and, I could do some streaming and post VODs, but for now, I'm just going to stick with a Let's Play. So thank you for being patient. Anyway, that's going to bring us to the end of this episode, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.